Travel Through Grief. Happy 4th of July and welcome to this special bonus episode of Travel Through Grief. I'm your host, Ellen Beckemeyer. This weekend, America turns 250 years old, a quarter of a millennium. Think about that for a moment. Not because it's a nice round number, not because the calendar tells us we should celebrate it, but because something inside us recognizes that milestones matter. They invite us to stop long enough to notice that we have actually been living, not just existing, not just surviving, but living. They give us a chance to look backward with gratitude, to stand firmly in the present, and quietly wonder what comes next. This 4th of July, it carries another meaning for me as well. It would have been my grandpa's birthday, and it would have been one of my best friend's birthdays. For a few wonderful years, Independence Day wasn't just America's birthday weekend. It was my friend's birthday weekend, too. We'd go out on the town and celebrate her birthday. Couple times, Magic Mike. And we'd stay out long enough to welcome the 4th of July. Those memories, they become stitched together in my heart. I really can't think of one without thinking of the other. So today, I celebrate differently. The calendar hasn't changed. I have. Maybe you've experienced that too. Yesterday was actually the 3rd anniversary of when another of my best friends passed away. So this weekend, it does hit hard. So basically, you return to the same holiday, the same anniversary, the same season, but you arrive as someone different because life has happened in between. That is what transitions do. They quietly change the traveler while the destination stays the same. As I sat with all of this, I found myself listening to America the Beautiful in a way I never really had before. Not singing it, listening. I realized the song doesn't begin with presidents or wars, political parties, or even people. It begins with the land, the spacious skies. Have you ever really looked at a field of amber waves of grain? If you've been lucky enough to see the purple mountain majesties, it's spectacular. And the fruited plain, that struck me because it reminded me that before there was a nation, there was a landscape. Before there were ever laws, there were rivers. And before there were borders, there were mountains. You know, because before there were cities, there were forests. The land was here before us, and if we're fortunate enough, if we care for it, it will remain long after each of us is gone. You know, governments are temporary. Policies, the economics rise and fall, and generations will come and go. Even our own lives are wonderfully temporary. But the land remains beneath it all, holding every chapter that has ever been written upon it. It reminds me of the roots beneath the forest. Hidden beneath the surface, they weave together in ways we never fully see. They're supporting the life above them. You know, the ocean, it doesn't stop because we drew a border on a map. Every wave eventually mingles with another. And think about this. A bird flying over Niagara Falls, it doesn't know when it has crossed from one country into another. It simply knows there is magnificent water beneath its wings. Nature has always whispered something that humanity sometimes forgets. We are connected long before we decide where the lines belong. As I continued listening, another lyric caught my attention. One I have sung for years without really hearing. God, mend thine every flaw. This year, those words, they landed differently. Not because the lyric changed, but I did. I found myself thinking about the land itself, the rivers, the forests, the coastlines, the fields that have fed generations, the places we've cared for well, and the places we've neglected. Like people, the land does carry scars. We can see them in the changing coastlines, the disappearing habitats, the polluted waters, and seasons that don't always feel the way we remember them. The land now needs mending too, not because it has failed us, but because we have not always cared for it as wisely as we could have. Mending isn't always something we ask God to do. It's something we're invited to participate in every day through the choices that we make. Not perfectly, but faithfully, one ordinary decision at a time. That thought led me somewhere unexpected. I realized that maybe this lyric, it isn't only about nations. Maybe it's about each of us. We all have flaws that need mending. We all have places where life has worn us down. We all have relationships that need repairing, and the conversations that need honesty, the communities that need compassion, and the hearts that need healing. None of that usually happens in one dramatic moment. It happens quietly, one ordinary day after another. I never really thought about what it means to live our ideals every ordinary day. Not on the 4th of July, not during election season, not when everyone is watching. But on Tuesday, on Wednesday, on an ordinary afternoon when no one else will ever know the choices we made. Because that is where our values actually live. They live in the small decisions that rarely make the news. They happen during a conversation or a response, a kindness, even a vote. They happen during a decision to help or to walk away, to tell the truth, stay curious, make room for someone else's story. Tiny transitions, so small they seem almost invisible until years later when we realize those tiny choices quietly became the pivotal moments of our lives. I keep trying to remember what was I doing when America celebrated 225. Maybe I was working. I did work for a steamboat, which was a tourist attraction. Maybe I was paying bills or running errands. Just living an ordinary life without realizing I was living through history. Most of us don't recognize history while we're inside it. History usually becomes visible only after enough time has passed for us to look back. Today doesn't necessarily feel historic. It feels like buying hamburgers for the cookout, filling the cooler with ice, calling the family members, watching grandchildren chase sparklers across the yard, or standing outside after everyone else has gone inside just to watch the fireflies drift across the evening. Completely ordinary. Until years later when those ordinary moments, they become the memories we treasure the most. I think that's true for people. I think it's true for communities. I even think it's true for nations. Rarely is everything changed by one grand event. More often, everything changes because millions of ordinary moments quietly accumulate over time. One family teaches kindness. One neighbor, they lend a hand. One teacher believes in a student, and one volunteer shows up. One person chooses forgiveness over resentment. None of those moments will make headlines. Yet together, they shape the character of a community and eventually the character of a nation. One of the greatest lessons that grief has taught me is that healing is almost never a solo journey. Someone sits beside you. Someone brings you dinner. Somebody remembers the anniversary that everyone else forgot. And someone, they send the text that arrives at exactly the right moment. Healing is a way of traveling from one heart to another. It moves through relationships. Communities heal that way too. Not because suddenly everyone agrees, not because every problem disappears, but because people continue showing up for one another, one ordinary day at a time. That has always been my hope for Travel Through Grief. Yes, I hope each episode helps one person find their way through a difficult transition. But it doesn't stop there. When one person heals, they love differently. They might even parent differently. They lead differently, and they definitely listen differently. They become more patient with a stranger because someone was patient with them. Their healing becomes someone else's hope. Travel through grief for you, and you for the world. Healing ripples outward in ways we will probably never fully see. Maybe that's what a quarter of a millennium asks of us. Not simply to celebrate what has already been accomplished, but to consider what we are contributing while it is our turn. Because this is our turn. Our turn to stand on this land. Our turn to care for it. Our turn to care for one another. And it's our turn to mend what needs mending. Not because we'll finish the work, but because every generation inherits a story, and every generation leaves one behind. We don't write the entire book. We simply write our chapter as faithfully as we can. Tonight the fireworks will light up the sky. Children will laugh. Families will gather around picnic tables and backyard grills. Some chairs will be empty. In some hearts, they'll quietly remember people who are no longer here. Some of us will celebrate. Some of us will grieve. Most of us, if we're honest, will do both at the same time. I've come to believe that one of the most human experiences there is. Joy and sorrow are not opposites. They often sit beside each other holding hands. So wherever you find yourself this 4th of July, I hope you'll pause for just a moment. Look up at the sky. Notice the trees swaying in the breeze. I invite you to feel the ground beneath your feet. Remember that long before we arrived, this land, it was here. And long after we are gone, it will still be here. For this brief chapter in history, we are the ones fortunate enough to call it home. What we do with that privilege is written one ordinary day at a time. So happy birthday, Grandpa. Happy birthday, Jules. And happy birthday, America. And thank you to this beautiful land for holding us and all of our stories. Until next time, keep traveling through. If this episode connected with you, I'd love for you to follow our podcast, leave a review, or share it with someone who may need it. Those small actions truly help new podcasts like Travel Through Grief grow and reach more people. And thank you to everyone who has already listened, rated, reviewed, and supported this journey. I appreciate you more than you know. Until next time, keep finding your way forward.